thank you for joining our coffee chat today. And this is again hosted by Visiting Angels. Whether you're a caregiver, you're a senior, or someone who just wants to be better prepared, we're so glad you're here. Today's session is called Stay Safe, Stay Ready, Fire and Fall Prevention for Seniors and Caregivers. That title might sound a little dramatic, but it reflects something very real. Every year, thousands of older adults experience preventable accidents in the home. Things like a misstep, forgotten appliance, or a missing alarm can quickly turn into a life-altering event. But there's the good news. We have, few smart practical changes, and we can do those, and they can give us huge difference. And I'm so honored to introduce our speaker for today. And I hope you are excited too. If you are excited, can you give us a little bit of a heart, or tell us where you're watching from in the chat just to warm up our seats here? All right, that's beautiful. I'm seeing hearts here. Anyway, our guest today is someone from Montgomery County Fire and Rescue's Community Risk Reduction Team. Her name is Christy, and she's a fire safety educator with over 20 years of experience working with seniors, adults with developmental disabilities right here in Montgomery County. She's deeply committed to education, prevention, and helping people feel more confident and safe with their daily lives. She'll be walking us through everyday safety tips from fire prevention to fall risks prevention and, things like that, along with real world strategies that can be used immediately. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Christy Duke. Welcome, Christy. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the wonderful introduction. I am so happy to be here. Again, my name is Christy. I work with Montgomery County Fire Rescue, the Community Risk Reduction Unit. Our job is to be in the community talking to folks about fire safety, fire prevention. My focus is on seniors and vulnerable populations. So my background is working with seniors and adults with developmental disabilities. So this is my passion. I love doing this every day. I feel blessed that this is what my job is. So today we're going to talk a little bit about prevention, right? We'll talk about smoke alarms, fall hazards, electrical safety issues, cooking safety issues. We'll talk a little bit about what to do in the event of a fire or other emergency, right? This doesn't just have to pertain to fire emergencies. And then I'd love to talk to you briefly about close before you doze, but we'll get to that at the end if there's time. I'm going to try to go pretty quickly so we can cover all the materials and then leave time for questions at the end. I appreciate you typing in the questions, and then we'll address them at the end. So if you have a question throughout, feel free to send it, but we will address them at the end. Okay? All right. So the first thing that I want to talk about is I want everyone to be safe in their home. Okay? So we're going to talk about a lot of things. We'll talk about different kinds of emergencies, right? So one of the main ones that we can talk about is a fire emergency. So we want to make sure that we're alerted as soon as something happens in your home. So the number one thing to help with that would be a working smoke alarm. Okay. So hopefully everyone on this call is making sure that their home or the homes that they're working in have working smoke alarms. Now, how do we know if our smoke alarms are working, right? There is a test button on a smoke alarm. So first of all, I wanted to address that there are about a lot of different smoke alarms, right? So here's an example just pulled from Amazon of all the different kinds, right? They're all gonna be helpful to you, right? They're usually round, and they have a test button on them. So they could be in a different place, but it will say test. You could push that button to make sure that they're working. So we want to make sure there are a few different kinds, right? So we can have either hardwired alarms with battery backups or battery only alarms. Generally, we see battery only alarms in older homes built before 1975. Um, so if your home was built after 1975, or if you had any work done, significant work done after 1975, you may have hardwired. So the hardwired alarms get their electricity from the house, the main, they're actually wired in, right, with a battery backup. So those are usually interconnected, which is great. So knowing the kind of alarm that you have is helpful if you have to replace them. Um, Smoke alarms in Montgomery County, our code is that they are replaced every 10 years. Um, so when you take a smoke alarm off of the ceiling and look at the back of it, it will have a manufactured date. They should be replaced every 10 years. And the reason we do that is because technology changes, right? We're not using the same cell phones we've used even 5 years ago, usually, right? We're updating all of that technology. So why wouldn't we want our homes to be protected um, with smoke alarms that have the best technology? And now in Montgomery County, we're pushing the if you have battery only smoke alarms, they should be the 10-year sealed lithium ion batteries. So the newer battery only alarms, you're not able to change the battery. I think we're used to having the alarms that we have to change the 9-volt battery. Um, those, if you have battery only, they really should be the 10-year sealed lithium ion battery, so you don't have to worry about it. If you do have a hardwired alarm, they might still have that battery backup that's a 9-volt battery. And so we recommend, of course, testing them monthly and then changing the batteries twice a year. And we usually recommend when we change our clocks, so at daylight savings time. It's just a nice reminder of when to do that. Okay. Um, Now, testing your smoke alarms. I said push that button. Not everybody is tall, right? I don't want any older folks to be on ladders or standing on a chair to try to figure that out. So everybody, I think, probably has a broom or a Swiffer with a long handle, right? So you're able to reach up if you're physically able and test that button, right? If not, have a caregiver or a friend help you with that. Okay. So just make sure that we're checking smoke alarms and replacing them as needed. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is carbon monoxide alarms. So, and I will preface all this with the things that I'm talking about as far as what's needed in your home. This is in reference to Montgomery County. So I'm speaking about Montgomery County. So in our county, you should have a carbon monoxide alarm if you have any natural gas appliances. So a gas stove, furnace, if you have an attached garage, or if your neighbor, so let's say you're in a townhouse, row of townhouses, if a neighbor has a garage, if you have a wood burning stove or a fireplace, all right, you should have a carbon monoxide alarm on every level of your home. To the right of this page is some information that I'll send out after this presentation. We have a lot of informational sheets that have a lot of great information and tips that you can take home. I will go ahead and send that over so that if you would like, you can request to have, that email to you, all of the resources. Okay. So making sure that you have working carbon monoxide alarms and smoke alarms in your home. One thing that I did want to mention is that here in Montgomery County, if you see on the bottom of the sheet on the right-hand side here, it says call 311 for a home safety check. So part of our job in the community risk reduction unit is we conduct free home safety checks to anyone, particularly homeowners who live in Montgomery County. So you can sign up. We will have a firefighter come out and conduct a home safety check in your home. We'll check all of your smoke alarms for you, let you know how old they are, if they need replaced. If they are the type that need new batteries, we can replace batteries. If you have battery only alarms, we're even able to replace them for you free of charge. We do not replace hardwired alarms, but we're happy to guide you as far as what you need to purchase and make sure that your home is safe. We'll also look at other fire safety issues, right? We'll make sure you don't have a lot of things next to a furnace or a water heater. looking for overloaded circuits, things like that, and just talk in general about escape planning for you and what that looks like. Our team that comes out, they're great, great folks that love to talk about, emergency preparedness and fire safety and keeping people informed and educated and feeling safe in their homes. So it's a wonderful service available to anyone in Montgomery County. If you own your home, we're able to install if possible. If you're renting, of course, we're not able to install, but still happy to come out and check things. So I would love for people to make sure you're aware of our program and to utilize it for yourself, for the folks that you're serving, whatever it is. Anyone in Montgomery County is eligible for that service. So please take advantage of it because it's a wonderful thing. Okay, so let's move on. All right, so the number one cause, so it's the leading cause of fires in Maryland, right? Um, Kitchen fires, specifically unattended cooking. So when I'm out at senior centers and senior buildings specifically, again, that's what my focus is on. But anywhere I talk, really, we'll talk about cooking safety. And my number one thing is if you're going to be cooking, stay present in the kitchen. It sounds so simple. It sounds, of course, right? Of course you're going to be in there, but we've all done it. Something happens, the doorbell rings, someone calls you from the other room, the phone rings, you have to go to the bathroom. You specifically in high-rise buildings, I'll have folks say, well, I just went down to check the mail, right? And we talk about how easy it is to get distracted, right? Specifically that, like, oh, I'm going to put a pot of water on the stove to boil. That's going to take 7-10 minutes. I'm fine. I'm going to go down and check the mail. Not a good idea. We get on the elevator, we go downstairs, we see our friend that we haven't seen in 3 weeks. They want to tell me about what's happening, right? It's very easy to get distracted and to forget about what's happening in your apartment or your home, right? So if you're cooking in the kitchen, please stay present in the kitchen. If you have to walk away, if you have to go away from where you're cooking, please, please, please turn off the burner. Maybe move the pot off of the burner. If you really are only gone for a minute or a minute and a half, you come back, turn it back on, it's not really going to affect your overall cooking time, right? One of the guys on my team says now that as he's gotten older, before he gets ready to cook, the first thing he does is he goes to the bathroom first, right? Because he knows it's going to happen, and he doesn't want to be distracted. I tell folks, look, anything can happen in the bathroom, right? Let's say that pot of water. Oh, it takes 7-8 minutes to boil. I'm fine. I'm going to use the bathroom. What if I fall in the bathroom, right? What if something happens and now I have a medical emergency and I'm also worried about something catching fire in my kitchen and then I can't move, right? Because I've fallen and I might not be able to get out. So it can really prevent a more serious situation if you just cut off the heat, do what you need to do, turn it back on when you're back in there. Okay. Some of the other things to talk about are keeping the cooktop free of debris, right? So if you spill something after you cook that time, make sure that you're taking the time to clean it up because we've all done it. We forget about it. We put the pot on the next time we're going to cook. What's that smell? There's smoke, there's everything because we didn't clean that up, right? Also making sure that you don't have anything around the cooktop, right? Maybe you bought a box of pasta, you poured it in the water, and you put the paper box on the counter or on the stove right next to the burner, right? In this picture there, you can see a rag, right? A dish towel thrown on the cooktop, and now it was a gas stove, and now it's caught fire, right? Something else that we don't think about is the pot handles. Okay. So what I mean by that is, so in the picture there, you can see, so if the pot handle, right, is sticking out into my kitchen and I walk past and I hit it, right? I don't know about you, but my kitchen is not super large. So if I walk past that, I may take whatever I'm cooking and now it's all down me, right? Like, so I now maybe have burns, I have a medical emergency. It's turned into a situation that if I had just turned the pot handles to be over the counter, and not able to be turned, that would have been a step that would have prevented that, right? Something else to think about is I know specifically with women, sometimes we wear clothes that have sleeves that are maybe long, or maybe we're wearing a robe that have the big sleeves. You have to think about what you're wearing when you're cooking, because if you're leaning over to reach something on the stove, you might have a situation where that catches fire, and now you personally are on fire. And I think we all learned in maybe the second grade, stop, drop, and roll, right? But just making sure that we're not putting ourselves in a situation where potentially the clothing that we're wearing is catching fire. So if you're cooking, maybe take that robe off, or roll up the sleeves or something so that you can prevent that from happening. Um, Again, we talked about turning off the burner. Something else to think about in the kitchen specifically, if you use things like a toaster oven, an air fryer, I don't know, waffle maker, a griddle, whatever. Never plug those things into an extension cord or a power strip. Okay, so any of those appliances are going to produce heat, right? So we're never plugging any appliance that produces heat into an extension cord or a power strip. And in the next slides after cooking safety, we'll talk about electrical safety, and how to stay safe for things like that. But definitely remember, never those appliances into extension cords or power strips, always directly into an outlet. Another tip that you can sort of get in the habit of is, usually in a kitchen, all of your plugs are pretty accessible. So it would be easy to lean back and unplug an appliance that you're not using. I recommend that you definitely unplug any small appliance that you're able to when you're not using it, just to prevent any kind of issue with a fire. Okay. For those of you who have children in the home, of course, making sure that they're staying away from the burners. And that's another reason we want to tilt the pot handles in. Maybe they reach up and could grab it. So just making sure that children are aware and keeping away from anything that could be hot. Okay. Um, Again, you can see a picture there about the pot handles. We're plugging things directly into outlets. We're clearing the cooktop area from anything. Another thing I wanted to talk about is, if you're ever cooking in your microwave or your oven, sometimes, right, maybe there's a little bit of something that should not have been microwaved, and we get a little bit of a spark, or there's a small fire in your microwave. If that happens, do not open the door. Um, Fire needs oxygen, right? So what you want to do is turn it off, right? If you can unplug it, fine, but turn it off and leave the door closed, because without that oxygen, the fire should go out. Again, if it's a small fire, I do not, I'm not saying this if, flames are shooting out of your microwave. If you have that kind of incident, then you're just out the door and you're calling 911. But if you do have a fire in your microwave, or your oven, you want to turn it off and keep the door closed and keep an eye on it, right? You should see it start to die down, um, and don't open it until after it's definitely out. Okay. I bring that up because I think it's a natural instinct to want to fling open the door, maybe, figure out what's going on, remove it. But really, it is much smarter to just turn it off. You want to turn it off because a microwave is bringing in air, right, as it's cooking. So it's getting oxygen. So if you turn it off, you don't have that air coming in. If you can unplug it, cool. And then just keep an eye on it. Obviously, if the fire is getting bigger, then you're gone and you're calling 911. But do not fling open the door to inspect what's happening. Okay. All right. So on to electrical safety. Like I said, we do home safety checks. We see things like these pictures here all the time. So if you look in this picture, this is one outlet that has two plugs, right? And then someone has plugged in two adapters that make one plug into three. It's the same thing for power strips. We see it all the time. This is too much going into one outlet. Um, we don't want to overload the outlets. That's not made for, that outlet is made for two plugs, and now we have five things plugged in there. Um, Power strips are the same way. Just because there are six plugs to plug something in doesn't mean you can plug in any six things you want. Now, I understand there's never enough outlets. We live in a world now where so many things need to be plugged in, right? Um, it used to be before technology and all of that, we had a TV, a lamp, and, a few other things, but now we have everything, right? So you just want to be mindful of what you're plugging in. When it comes to power cords, now you could calculate um, the actual amount that you should be putting there, but I will tell you to just sort of think about it in a common sense way, right? If you think generally, you can probably understand that there's a difference between the amount of electricity used for a regular lamp, a laptop computer, and a 65-inch TV, right? So we want to make sure we aren't plugging in a laptop, a 65-inch TV, uh, a laptop computer, I said laptop computer, tablet, right? We're not plugging in a bunch of things into one. Um, just sort of trying to break it up as best you can, and use a little bit of common sense. Again, you could calculate all of it. Absolutely. When you bought that power strip, it definitely told you, um, the amount that you should be plugging in there. A rule of thumb also that we use is if you put all of the cords together of the things you want to plug in. So let's say you have the cord for the lamp, the cord for the TV, the cord for whatever else you're plugging in, and you put them together. The diameter of all of those together, if that is more than the diameter of the cord for the power strip, then it's too much to be plugged in there. That's just a general, quick way to sort of gauge whether what you're doing is correct. Um, Again, so as little as possible. If you can divide up where you're going to plug things in, please do that. Never, ever, ever what's called daisy chain a power strip. So that's plugging in a power strip into another power strip, right? Um, those kinds of things cause fires all the time. We talked about never using an extension cord for anything that produces heat, so a space heater and a small appliance, never into a power strip or extension cord. Um, Please, please, please look at your cords to your devices. Look at your extension cord. In the bottom picture here, you can see a very frayed extension cord. Now, that's a pretty obvious thing, right? I don't think anybody here would say, oh, I should probably use that. But I think probably everybody here who has a cell phone has had that experience where right where you plug it in for whatever reason, it kind of frays where it's like bent, I think from plugging it in and then you put it on the table, right? So you get that bent there and you can maybe see a little bit of exposed wire. That's something that happens more commonly with newer products, even. And I encourage you to please pay attention to that and replace it if that happens. You never want to be able to see any cracks or exposed wires in any of the cords that you're using on a regular basis. Okay. Um, I tell folks too to sit, in your living room and look around and think, hey, I've had that lamp for 25 years. This was a lamp that I had when, I was living wherever, right? When's the last time you unplugged it and took a second to inspect the cord? Um, that's not something we're doing on a regular basis, but I encourage you to periodically, if you're moving furniture and cleaning behind the TV stand or whatever it is, or if someone's doing that for you, to take a second to look at that power strip, to make sure the power strip is still intact. It doesn't have any damage on it. Nothing that's plugged in there is cracked or or breaking or in any way, right? So pay attention to those things. Something else to think about is when you bought that power strip, you first of all, you might not know how old that power strip is, right? Usually when I'm in presentations, I say, raise your hand if you have a power strip, and people do. And I say, keep your hand up if you know exactly how old it is. And usually it's like two people because they just bought it last month or whatever it is, right? Um, those power strips, when you bought them in the book, it said, replace it every however many years, right? 3, 5, whatever it is. Unfortunately, we don't always remember how old that is. There's nothing on there indicating maybe when it was made. So I tell people now, my new rule of thumb is if you buy something new like that, take a Sharpie and write on the back of it when you bought it. And if it said in the book, right, take a second to read the book. If it said in the book how long to keep it, maybe note that as well. Um, okay, so pay attention to those kinds of things. When you're buying power strips or any electrical product, really, you want to look for these things listed here, the picture here, the UL listed or ETL listed. So that's the Underwriters Lab, and then ETL. That's just a little bit of extra testing that a product has gone through to let you know that it's a little bit better quality product, right? So do we agree that there's a difference between the quality of the cell phone charger that came with your phone and the one that you may have bought when you were traveling at Five Below or whatever it was, right? Um, the newer, the nicer cell phone cords that came with your phone might have things like adaptive charging. It'll turn off when it's full, all of those things that you're not going to have with those other lesser products. So it might cost a little bit more, but you get what you pay for in those cases. And really, it's much safer to make sure that you're buying quality products. And I've highlighted here where even on Amazon, even if you're shopping on Amazon, it will list whether something is UL listed or ETL listed. So you're able to look there and see if you're having a quality product. Okay. Something else to talk about is everybody has a cell phone. So when you're charging your cell phone, to make sure that you are charging it on a hard surface, on a nightstand, on a coffee table, an end table, whatever it is, on a hard surface. Um, because we all know when we charge our cell phones, they get warm. And you want to make sure you're not putting that on something that could catch fire. So I tell people, please don't charge your cell phone on the corner of a couch, like on the arm of a couch. You might stand up, it slides between the cushions, and would cause a fire. Okay, so make sure you're being aware of where you're charging things. And also, something I didn't think about until I started doing this presentation was charging a cell phone or any other device in direct sunlight. So if you're adding extra heat when you're charging something, that can cause a fire as well because it's already getting warm and then you're adding more and it could cause that battery to overheat. There's been a lot of concern lately about lithium ion batteries. I'm sure you've all seen it in the news causing fires at homes. Um, the recent thing that I've been seeing, the trend here in Montgomery County lately, has been fires specifically starting in the garage with larger lithium ion batteries for, sometimes people use them for drills or lawn equipment. So they have the chargers in the garage, and that sometimes can cause a fire. So make sure that you're properly doing things like that. I know at home now, if I'm charging those batteries, I only do it when I'm in the garage and present. And when I'm done, I unplug it just to make sure that that's safe as just an extra precaution. You want to make sure also that you're disposing of your lithium ion batteries properly. In Montgomery County, you can take them to the transfer station. I know I'm at a senior center right now, and they have a battery disposal area right here, a place where they'll collect the batteries and take them and dispose of them properly. Staples will take batteries. Like I said, our transfer station, but some people live a little far away and it's inconvenient. I think Home Depot and Lowe's might also do it. So there are plenty of ways to dispose of them properly, but make sure that you are paying attention to that because those can also cause fires. I don't know if you've seen on the news where trash trucks will catch fire because of batteries. So it's a concern. And not meant to scare you, just be aware and make sure you're properly disposing them, and that should be fine. All right, let's see what's next. Oh, so dryer vents. Okay, of course, you're cleaning your lint screen after every load of laundry that you're doing. But if you own your home, you also need to be concerned about the vent that goes from the back of your dryer outside. Okay, that's your responsibility to make sure you don't have a buildup because lint builds up there as well. Specifically, usually when there are turns, right? So if you know how far your vent has to go outside, um, you need to make sure you can do that. And there are plenty of companies that will do that for you, or if you have a family member who's able to. But They say about once a year, but it depends obviously on how often you do laundry. So I say, have it done and then see how how jammed up it was, right? And like ask for their recommendation. Maybe it's twice a year, right? But just making sure that you're paying attention to that and being aware of that. So definitely cleaning your lint screen after every load, but there's definitely also a piece you have to worry about if you own your home. Now, if you're a renter, generally, hopefully, um, the property management company will be having the like if you have a laundry room or if you're not responsible for that hookup, they should be cleaning those out once or twice a year as well, usually once a year. That would be their responsibility. But if you own your home and you've never had that done and it's been a long time, I recommend getting that checked out as well because that can definitely cause home fires as well. I think the next thing I'm going to talk about is fall prevention. And please excuse me because I think I might have some blank slides, but you'll bear with me. Oh, maybe I didn't put it. Hold on. Sorry. Okay. So let's talk about fall prevention before we talk about escape planning for fires, right? So we're still talking about prevention. So we went over a lot of things that can help us prevent a fire in our home, right? But what about falls? Unfortunately, we know that it's a very common occurrence and can turn it can be very dangerous, right? So there are some things that we can do. To decrease our chances of having a fall. There are things that we can do to prepare physically, right? Things like exercising often. Of course, talking to your doctor to figure out what kind of exercise would work for your abilities, right? So that's going to strengthen. It would build your strength and improve your coordination and balance. Um, and then also little things like taking your time. Now that sounds so silly, right? It's like, oh, of course, right? But just when you're transitioning, so standing up, getting up out of bed, um, sitting up from a chair, whatever it is, take your time, right? Sit for a moment. When you sit up before you get out of bed, sit on the other edge of your bed and just, you know, just get your bearings first before you stand up and stand up slowly, right? And when you're standing from sitting, before you start to walk, stand up, wait for a second, make sure you feel completely, balanced and then stepping, right? So those are things that physically we can be doing. Also, when we're in homes of people, and if you're a caregiver and you're in a home, you might want to look around for things that would be helpful to someone um, to prevent a fall, right? So there's definitely things that we can be looking at. Lighting is a big one. A lot of folks will get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, or maybe they're taking a nap and the area is dark from their bed to their bathroom, whatever it is. Having night lights in areas that are dark are helpful so you don't have to turn on lights. Now, the way technology is, there's all sorts of battery operated motion lights, even that don't even need plugs. So you can kind of mount them on the wall wherever. I know I have those on my stairs so that I don't have to turn on the lights every time I'm coming downstairs, but I didn't have outlets. So I was able to get battery operated motion lights. Of course, turning on lights before you're going down the stairs. Going back to the physical side, of course, we're making sure we're having regular eye exams, going to the doctor, and making sure all of those things are there. Something else that you want to think about is stairways or entrances, making sure that you have handrails um, so that you're setting yourself up to feel safe to go up and down those stairs. You also want to make sure you're not storing items on the stairs. So when you go into your home and it maybe it's just your home, when you're done with this presentation, you're like, hey, let me look around, right? Um, I know in my home, I tend to set something on the stairs to carry up later, right? And that can be a problem, right? Because if I don't carry it up the next time, then I've got this trip hazard, this fall hazard on my steps. So you want to try to not do that. Get out of that habit. Make sure that you're keeping the stairs and entrance ways and walkways clear of things. Um, things like throw rugs. I don't love throw rugs. I know we all have them, but if you're going to have them, secure them. Make sure they're the kind with the rubber backings if you really have to have them. Um, but just making sure that anything on the ground that you could trip on, if again, if you don't need that throw rug there and it isn't absolutely necessary, I would encourage um, getting rid of it because it's just an opportunity if you don't pick up your foot the proper way to just trip on that. Something else that I see a lot is people will have a cord to something that they want to plug in. Um, and we should have talked about this in electrical safety, but so if you have a cord and let's say just the way it's set up, it's on one side of the room and it has to go, the cord has to cross the pathway. Okay. You never want to put a throw rug over top of an extension cord or anything that you're plugging in, right? Because you're not allowing airflow around that and you could cause a fire hazard. So I think people do it to prevent a trip hazard, but you're then creating a fire hazard. So if you have a situation like that where something has to be plugged in, I really encourage you to try to figure out some other way um, to have that plugged in, right? We've all done it. I'm actually sitting at a desk right now where my power strip to my laptop is plugged in to my left into a wall behind me, and it's setting me up for a fall. If something were to happen and I had to get up immediately and walk, I would probably trip. I hope I don't do that today. But again, this is not my office setup. I'm at a senior center. Um, but I'm aware of that and I've kind of set it up on the desk to make me more aware of what's happening. But if you have something like that in your home that you're using regularly, please try to find a solution that's not going to have it be in front of where someone is going to walk, right? Um, yeah, so a lot of things that we can do for that. So looking around your home and saying, "Hey, is there a threshold that maybe is not even that I could adjust? Do I have a rug that I've tripped on?" Honestly, it's sometimes it's as simple as thinking about what we've done, right? Like you might say, "Hey, I've stumbled on that a few times. I know it's there. Let me address whatever that is," right? Um, Dealing with it before it becomes hopefully not, but a fall that then hurts someone significantly, right? So just taking a chance to look around and look for things like that. Making sure that you have the proper handrails on stairs, like I said. Um, there are a lot of assistive devices for standing up from a chair, using a walker, especially if someone's using a walker at home. You want to make sure that there's nothing that that walker could get caught on. Again, throw rugs. Um, I know that my mom at home uses a walker, and I get really frustrated when there's a throw rug down. I'm like, I want to get rid of all of them because it'll catch, right? And it just causes her to not be stable on that, and I that really concerns me. So just make sure you're looking around for any uneven things. It might be a sidewalk outside. It might be when you're going outside, you know that the third square of cement, right? Like there's a seeing if you can get that fixed and taken care of because you know it, but it's going to be one day that you're not thinking about it and there could be something, right? So paying attention to those things and trying to deal with those before um, we have those kinds of issues. Okay. Let me see what else. Okay. So I'm going to go back to um, escape planning. So those were the prevention things that we talked about, right? We talked about ways to make sure that our homes are safe, that we have all the things in place so that if there is an emergency, a fire, that we're able to be alerted because we have working smoke alarms, working carbon monoxide alarms, and we're getting out and we're calling 911. Um, so we didn't talk about that, but of course, if there were to be a fire in your home, I would want you to get out and then call 911. I can't tell you specifically what your fire escape plan looks like, right? That has to be something that you are thinking about for your home and for your ability, right? Um, I talk with folks, people on this call could live in apartments, condos, townhouses, single family homes. There's any number of things, right? So I can't say here's the way it's going to work for you. You have to think about what that looks like in your home, but we'll talk about general things, right? So we talk about plan A, plan B, and plan C. Okay, so plan A is going to be get out your primary closest exit and call 911. Okay. So plan A is out the front door. I'm able to get to the front door. I'm physically able to get out. There's no smoke or fire blocking it. I get out the door and I call 911 from outside. Okay. I don't go back in, right, to get something. I don't, even if I've forgotten my phone, I hope I brought it. But even if I didn't, I'm going to go outside, go to a neighbor, find some other way to call 911. I want you to get out. When I talk about a designated meeting place, it says here um, to go to your designated meeting place. A lot of times, I'm talking to folks that have maybe many generations in a home, right? So there's young kids, um, the grandparents live with them, the adults. And we talk about, especially in a single family home, it could be very scary to, you want to teach everyone in the house or talk with everyone in the house, specifically kids too, to make sure that they don't, if they hear the smoke alarm or they smell smoke or there's fire, to get out of the house the quickest way that they can, right? So let's, for instance, if kids are playing in the basement and there's an egress, there's a door in the basement and they smell smoke or the fire alarm goes off, you want them to go out their nearest exit. That might be the backyard, right? Out that nearest exit. You don't want them to come back up in the house to find mom or dad or whatever it is, but you want them to have a meeting place so that if you are upstairs and the fire alarm goes off, smoke alarm goes off, and you go outside, you know where everyone's going to be, right? Um, it would be very scary to think as a parent, you come downstairs, you look outside, and you think your children aren't out of the house, and you might do something not smart, like try to go back in and save them, but maybe they're just in the backyard. They got out of the house, but they're in the backyard and they're crying or, sitting on the ground. How scary, right? So if everyone knows to come to that meeting place, um, sometimes it's the mailbox at the end of the driveway or, whatever it is, but make sure everyone in the home is aware of what that is. So you can all go to that same place. So when you're calling 911, you can say, hopefully, everyone is out safe or, uh, you know, if someone is not, you would, everyone is here but this, whatever it is, right? So we say always stay out, don't try to re-enter. Um, Obviously, you're only going to go back in when the fire department says it's okay. Okay, so that would be number one. And we also say if you can, close the doors when you go. Okay, so again, if you forget, you're not going back to do that, but close your doors. People will be like, I left it open for the fire department. Listen, they're getting in, right? We're not worried about that, but that's going to slow. And we'll talk a little bit about that when we talk about close before you doze. Those closed doors are going to slow the progression of that fire, right? It's amazing how much that can do. So when you're leaving your house, close the door. If you're leaving, maybe you live in an apartment complex and you're able to make sure you close those doors, especially in an apartment building, a high rise, things like that. Sometimes you have a fire door. So you really want to make sure that you do that. All right. So that would be plan A. You get out the first exit. Okay. Plan B is use your secondary exit. Still a good plan, right? Um, Still the same things. You're closing the door behind you. So maybe, your main entrance is your primary exit. You are in your living room. You hear your smoke alarm goes off or whatever it is. You go to your front door and there's smoke or fire that way, right? So obviously you're not going to go out that way. You're going to be aware of where the other exit is. Do you have a back door, a side door, whatever it is, right? Again, I can't tell you specifically what that is. You have to think about your home and what makes the most sense. Um, Even windows, people will tell me all the time, oh, I'm going to break a window and whatever. And I'm like, do your windows open? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, cool. Open the window. Please don't break it because you could hurt yourself more. But I was just doing a presentation here at a senior center and I said, listen, even on a first floor, right? If I'm physically able, if I'm thinking about it and I go, okay, if I really couldn't get to my front door or my back door, I could go out a window, right? Let's say I'm physically able to go out a window. I can think about, I might have four windows on my first floor. I need to think about, if I have access to all of them, what the best one is for me to go out, right? Maybe one of them is a little higher than the other one. So that's not the one I want to go to, right? Maybe one has a bunch of flowers that would, be easier to fall into than cement or whatever it is, right? So thinking about that, I don't love the idea of going out a window. I'm hoping you can go out another exit. But just, thinking about that, I have to believe we never know how we're going to act in the event of a true emergency, right? But I have to believe that the more I think about it, the more I plan for it, the more I think about what I would do, the better chance that I'm going to be able to make a decision in the event that it happens, right? So I'm the kind of person that just sits and thinks about, right? I want to be prepared, not scared, right? And I want to believe that the more I think about it, I'm like, oh, I've thought about this before. Okay, that exit is closed. I mean, is blocked to me, but I know that I can go out a different way, right? Okay, so that would be plan B. Now, plan C. Okay. This is, I talk about this one a lot, specifically in apartment buildings, where you have one exit to your home. Okay. So let's say you're in your apartment, you're watching TV and in the evening, watching Jeopardy, and the fire alarm goes off in your building. Okay. I always tell everyone, always treat it like it's a true emergency. Okay. I don't care if this week your neighbor burnt toast 3 times and you had to go out. I'm sorry about that, but please go out if you're physically able. So always if you're physically able. So you're going to go to your door and you're going to feel your door first. And you're feeling to see if it's hot. Um, if it's hot, it could indicate that there's fire on the other side, so you're not going to go out. If you feel it's not hot, you look out and there's fire or so much smoke that you can't see right in front of you. You're also not going to go out. If that's the case, so let's say you're in your home and for whatever reason your exit is blocked, you're unable to get out. What you're going to do is get as far away as you can, right, from the smoke or fire. You want to be in a room or somewhere far away from that and get behind as many closed doors as possible. Okay. So in an apartment, it's easy to think about because you can't go out the exit door, right? That's blocked. Let's say you live on the 15th floor. So obviously you're not going out a window. So you would want to go into a bedroom, close the door. And if you have a bedroom that has an attached bathroom, you would go into your bedroom, go into your bedroom, close your bedroom door, go into your bathroom, close your bathroom door. Hopefully you've grabbed your phone, you're on the phone with 911. Okay. So it's the same for a home. So if there's anywhere there isn't smoke or fire that has, you can put as many doors between you and the fire that you can. Okay. So you're going to call 911 as soon as you possibly can. You're going to let them know exactly where you are. So if you're in a single family home or even an apartment, you want to be as clear as you can. In an apartment, you might say down the hallway, the first door on the right, or whatever it is, because think that the firefighters are coming in and it's full of smoke and they're not able to see. So you want to be as descriptive as possible. If you're in a home and you're on the second floor, you might, at the top of the steps to the left-hand side, however you can be descriptive and let them know. But so when you call 911, they're going to remind you of all these things. They might say, if you're in a bathroom, they might say wet a towel and put it under the door. They'll tell you all those things, but make sure you get as many doors as possible because it's crazy, but that will protect you. Even if it's a hollow core interior door, there is a level of protection there that will buy you minutes, and minutes will matter because if you've called 911, we have a great response time in Montgomery County. Hopefully we can get there and get you to safety. Okay. So all right, I think I'm good. I think we can do questions. I wanted to talk about close before you doze. I'm just going to tell you what it is briefly. I wasn't able to embed it in here for whatever reason, and I will share the direct link. Um, This is a shorter version of it. But basically, we have a campaign in this county, well, nationwide, but we promote it here in Montgomery County. It's called Close Before You Doze. We talk about the importance and how much safer it is to sleep with your bedroom door closed. So there's a video that you can watch where at the firefighter research lab, they build a house, right? They have a house that they build for training purposes. They have a living room and two bedrooms. They close one bedroom door and they open another one. They set a fire in the living room. Fire goes, they put it out, and then they pull the sides of the house because, again, it's a house they built for training purposes. They pull it down, and you're able to see the bedroom door that was closed is perfectly white and just a little bit around the door, a little bit of smoke. The bedroom door that was open is completely black, covered in smoke. And you can see the stark difference that a closed door makes. So I will absolutely share that. If you have a pen with you, it's called closeyourdoor.org. And you can write it. But again, I'm going to send all of that so that you're able to watch that. And you really will see the difference that a closed door makes. All right, so let's do questions. Here's my contact information. I'll just leave that up. Hopefully, Dexter, we can do the questions. I can address the questions if we have enough time. I went a little bit over. Sorry. I'm a talker. So let's do the questions.
It's all right. We got lots of gems, Christy. It's
All
all
right.
good. Yeah. We actually only have two questions right now.
Okay.
So, on number one, is there a preferred or minimum requirement when to have or use a power strip? And I know you've kind of talked about it. Let's just have a bit of recap if
Yeah,
you
sure.
may.
So did they say that there's a minimum requirement? Like how many, meaning how
Yeah,
many
kind of
items to
like
plug
that.
in or yeah,
Preferred or
so
minimum requirement? Probably the quality. Let's talk about the quality which you
okay.
mentioned a while ago. And
Yeah.
let's add something about, at least stop putting things if this reaches, yeah.
It's so silly. Specifically in apartments, there are never enough outlets. I get it, right? Like I understand dorm rooms, all these things. Um, but make sure just because there's six, please don't ever plug six things into a power strip. I'm just gonna say it right now. I can't tell you what the magic number is, right? Because it depends what the things are. But we tell people like three max. And then again, when you're buying the products, now moving forward, I'm not promoting get rid of everything in your home and replace everything. But the next time you need to replace a power strip, right? Or have take a look at that power strip, right? Because some people will say, I haven't looked at that power strip since I moved in and I installed that TV, right? Look at that power strip and see if it's damaged. One time I pulled a power strip out and it had like burn marks in it, like there was some kind of issue. I didn't know there was an issue, but it was like singed and I was like, oh no. So when you're buying products from now on, as you're moving forward, I'm not promoting, replacing everything right now, but you're looking for that UL or ETL rated things. And my advice to you is to look for name brand products that you recognize, right? Um, I'm not saying that there aren't other brands on Amazon or other things that are available that are UL and ETL rated. So if you're going to do that, definitely make sure that's that. But I like to stick to, a brand that I've heard of, Westinghouse. I'm not promoting one over another. I just mean something that is a brand that's been around for a long time that I've heard about. But I'm also looking for that UL ETL. And on the back of a power strip, sometimes it's like a metallic sticker on the back of it. It's like almost holographic, like you'll be able to look for that, but it'll be listed on that. So when you're buying things moving forward, and please with the cheap power cords for the cell phones. Look, we've all done it, right? We've been traveling. Oh no, I have to stop at 7-Eleven and get a cord, but please don't use that as your charger for every day to charge your phone. That's my piece about.
Oh,
Okay.
all right. So here's a related question. And it's what about the house wiring if it's old? You know,
Okay. So, of course, you should definitely look, you need a professional to do that, right? That's an electrician thing, right? Um, I know that I'll speak from experience, right? Sometimes we know when there's an issue with an outlet, right? We've plugged something in. Maybe I just had a lady tell me here at the senior center that when she plugs something in, it kind of pops or whatever. And I said, listen, you need to call an electrician to have somebody come and look at that. So definitely, if a house is significantly older, you do want to have an electrician come and just take a look at things, right? Just to make sure that everything is working properly. Um, yeah, I can't tell you exactly what that is, but definitely have an actual electrician versus maybe a handyman or a contractor that maybe knows a little bit about everything. I would recommend getting an actual licensed electrician to look at things like that to see if it's worthwhile to maybe have to do an upgrade or whatever that is. But I would have that checked out by a professional. And I just tell people, pay attention to things, right? When things like our cell phone overheats or whatever, that's a sign, and listen to those signs. So if you go to plug something in and something isn't acting right, act on those things, right? Take care of those things when they happen, because those are our early warning signs, right? That something's going on, and to please be mindful of those before something more serious happens. Hope that
All
answers the
right.
question. Okay,
Yes, perfect.
that's it.
And here's our final question here. How
Okay.
often should fire extinguishers be replaced?
Okay. All right. So fire extinguishers. We at the fire department, we don't promote fire extinguishers. And here's the reason before everybody panics. I usually say in my presentations, who here has a fire extinguisher? And people raise their hands. And I say, great, keep your hand raised if you've ever used a fire extinguisher. And usually it's one or two people that learned how to do it at work 20 years ago. Fire extinguisher. So to answer your question, on the fire extinguisher, there's a gauge. Okay. And the gauge will tell whether it's green and red, right? Whether it's working or not, or has enough charge. That's what's going to tell you. If you do have one at home, I recommend that you learn how to use it, um, and that you feel comfortable. So I'll send a link to a resource that we have. There's a video that a family shared. It was an actual fire in their home. They had a Nest camera, and they were having a party. They moved a table that had a candle on it, and it caught the curtains on fire and the house burned down. But in the video, you can hear them trying to get things to help fight the fire. And somebody's going, I can't get the pin out. I can't get the pin. They couldn't get the fire extinguisher to work. The problem is a lot of the at-home fire extinguishers that you're buying at Home Depot, once a fire gets to the point where it's even this big, right? Like there's only a few, not even a minute worth of chemical in there, right? To be able to fight the fire. If you're if you're using a fire extinguisher or those fire blankets that you see everywhere online, you're putting yourself in danger, right? You're going toward the fire, you're trying to fight the fire yourself, putting yourself in more harm, and you're delaying calling us. Okay. So we don't promote things like fire extinguishers and fire blankets because we don't want you to try to fight the fire and delay calling us. So, but to answer your question, you look on the gauge to see if it's charged enough, and you can either have them serviced or purchase a new one. But again, we're not. If you do have one, please learn how to use it. And we don't do those trainings, but you can certainly take a training. A lot of people have them at work. I know that's where I was trained how to use a fire extinguisher. But you don't want the first time you're trying to figure out how to use it in the event of an emergency. So if you are going
That's
to
a
have something like
beautiful
that,
take there.
yeah, make sure that you know how to use it, because otherwise, like I said, this video, it's a very, and everybody was fine. Everyone lived, everyone got out of the home safely, but their house burned to the ground, the family of the video that I'll share. But it was interesting because you heard them say, a bucket of water. And it just, you know, they called 911. The fire department was very close, and they still lost their house because fire spreads so quickly. You really just need to focus on getting out and calling
All
911.
right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's the first time I'm getting that perspective there, and it just makes total sense. Get out And
And that
call the professionals.
and don't call 911 like when you're still in your home. Get out first and then call 911. And if you forgot your phone, you
Mm-hmm.
forgot your phone. It's 2025. There'll be somebody outside you can yell to or whatever.
All right.
But get yourself
Beautiful.
safe. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And it's buzzer beater coffee chat right now. It's 11:59. We've answered all the questions that we have here. We've gotten so much value from you, Christy. We'd like to thank you for this session. And of
Of
course,
course.
for everybody who's watching here, let it be known that you will be getting the resources, that Christy will be sending us, even the links to the video that she mentioned, everything. I'm gonna be compiling that. Once I've edited this video and cleaned it up so that you could consume it in an easier manner, you will expect an email from us if you've registered to this webinar, this coffee chat. So, yes, I'd like to again invite everyone for next Wednesday. I mean, next third Wednesday of the month, all right, for July. And just again, check your inbox, your email inbox. You'll have the information there. So, yeah, Christy, do you have any final words for our audience?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me. And also, for those of you who live in Montgomery County, Maryland, please feel free to call 311 and request a free home safety check because we would love to come out and make sure your home is safe.
Yes, guys. Use that. Use that. I mean, that's it. Anyway, thank you very much. This is Dexter from Visiting Angels, giving a big thanks to Christy and to everyone who's joined us, for the caregivers who are here, for the regular folks who just want to take care of their loved ones, and for the elders who are taking, proactive measures for their what do you call this? Independence. Thank you and have a great day. Bye, everyone.